Is Alexis Morris self-entitled, or is she just pointing out a real problem in the WNBA? Or is it both? And what is the solution? So let's get into this. First, as you're likely aware, Alexis Morris was cut from the Connecticut Sun. During training camp, it seemed like she knew her prospects of making the team were dim, as she made a video during training camp bemoaning the fact that the colleges really hadn't prepared her for the transition to the WNBA and the style of play that she'd be required to play in the future. Initially, after being cut, she was quite positive, saying, "Bro, don't call me or text me on no sad behavior. It's up. It's too much cheese and opportunities out there to be sad. I'm the comeback kid. I'll be back, Luthor." But then a few days later, she issued a series of tweets that have now been deleted, basically telling the veteran players to hang it up as they're taking spots from the rookies. "The vets gotta know when to cut the net and to pass the torch, bro," she wrote. "If you're knocking at 35, hang it up, and I mean wired hanger. Hang it up." Then the vets fired back with the most impactful tweet coming from Sydney Colston, who outlined how she'd been cut from several teams and how she often lost out to rookies and the old CBA as they were cheaper to keep than the vets. Then this just set up the Twitter debate whether Morris was self-entitled or whether she had a genuine point about how the rosters need to be expanded or something needs to be done to have more rookies in the game. Let's first take a look at the self-entitled point of view, or the grumpy old man point of view, as I would like to call it. So this argument or narrative would go along the line of, these young players today are so self-entitled from NIL and from the transfer portal. Anything happens difficult, what are they going to do? They're just going to transfer and go to another school. It doesn't really build resilience, and they expect everything to be handed to them on a platter, i.e. it doesn't go well, goodbye, I'm out of here, I'll be a star at another school. Hence why Morris goes into the real world of the WNBA and she doesn't get a job. And what is her solution? Hey, the people that have the jobs that are better than me, you guys are old and should quit so I can have a place in this league. I would think most would say the transfer portal has some good aspects to it, i.e. a player sitting on the bench doesn't get an opportunity, they can go to a new place and get a shot to get playing time and be the player they think they're going to be. But at the same time, the downside is it really doesn't build resilience. And when you think of this, at least I think of Tom Brady. He was the backup at Michigan, and he knew in his heart that he was better than Drew Henson, the touted prospect. But Michigan didn't want to lose the touted prospect, and they basically promised him the starting QB job. And basically, Brady had to sit on the bench and really fight to get basically the starting job. So eventually, he won it and actually won the bowl game. But in the modern era, that never would have happened. Brady would have transferred, and who knows what would have happened. But that episode helped build resilience in him and might be the reason how he could have been such a low round draft pick and worked his way up, and when he had his chance he took advantage. And it could be argued that resilience was fostered in those battles at Michigan and sort of getting screwed over and having to fight his way through it. And that's something the modern athlete doesn't have. All right, so that's the old man. Back in my day, I walked uphill in snow both ways. That's their take. Now, there is a case for Alexis Morris and sort of her argument that the system and the way it's set up is not real great. And essentially that's basically 36 players were drafted and only 15 made it. And that's the same way the year before in 2022. And then in 21, I think only 8 players made it out of the 36 drafted. So this is not a real great system and not nourishing young talent coming through to ensure the long-term health of the league. So what's the solution? Of course, expand the rosters, and hey, let's get some expansion teams. Again, I don't think this is realistic. It's not happening. They're not doing expansion for another 2 years. I don't know if they really should expand. I've done another video on that explaining my rationale for it. I think it's better to have a league that's strong with 12 teams. Expanding the rosters makes sense, but the owners aren't going to do that. They don't want to spend the money. So the only thing I can really see to help the rookies make the teams is what I would suggest is cutting the draft down to one round. So just a 12-player draft so that all the other players would be essentially free agents and allowed to sign contracts with the teams that give them the best chance to make a team. That allows you, if you're a big, to go find a team that's short on bigs or a place that you think you can compete to find a job. Tony Romo once did an interview talking about how he chose the Dallas Cowboys. And he said that, his friends were saying, oh, this team doesn't have a good quarterback or that team doesn't have a good quarterback. Why don't you try out there? And he's like, no, that's not what you look at. What you look at is the backup quarterbacks because that's who you're competing against. And that's the same way. The smart rookies would look and say, okay, where's the best roster and where might I be able to make a roster, and then allow them to choose versus being drafted by a team that has a very strong roster or one that's really strong in the position you play. Now, on the other point that Morris mentioned during camp about how she didn't feel like the colleges prepared her well for the WNBA, that's probably true, but that's not their job. I mean, their job is the college coaches, their job is dependent on winning college games. They're not worried about you being able to be prepared to run the pro set offense. With that being said, there are obviously coaches that probably do a better job preparing you for the pros than others, just in the way they run the program. So obviously UConn, their players generally translate well into the pros just because there's pressure on them to play there. There's a high expectation by the coach. All the players talk about how much pressure is put on them every day in practice and things like that. That just toughens you up and makes you a better player. If you're in the NFL, like if you want to go pro and you're a top prospect, Alabama is a good choice, is they just churn out pros every year. But even with that, it's not their main focus. Alabama wants to win national championships. And it was the same thing with Ben Simmons. So Ben Simmons could have gone to the AIS in Australia. That's the Australian Institute of Sport. This next video I've done on that was a better development pathway he should have taken versus coming to the U.S. and being a high school prospect and playing AAU and then going to LSU. He never developed his game, and consequently when he got to the pros, he's been exposed. And this next video shows it, because the AIS, they've had so much success with like Patty Mills, Josh Gidley, Bogut, and a few others. And Bogut outlines what they do at the AIS to prepare you. It's no joke. It's pretty damn intense, and that's why that program's had so much success. So if you are a college player intent on hopefully going pro, which is a damn long shot, but if you are, then you have to really think and choose about the program you're trying to go to, and as well think about the game that you're trying to develop to make it on the next level. Because to go to the pros, you need to be able to play defense like a Jordan Horston, or you need to have one super special skill like be a damn good shooter or a damn good shooter and have height or something like that, or an exceptionally quick point guard off the dribble and can play defense. Because if you don't have that, then it's damn hard to make that league because there are only 144 roster spots. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe. See you next time.